Welcome, Humanities 4, Shasta College Film Studies. This is my second lecture. I'll post this on Canvas. Watch it on, post it on Canvas in modules. Hopefully everything's going smoothly for this week. This is the beginning week, so there are going to be glitches. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be panic, all that good stuff. Not to worry. We're all in the same boat. We're all in this together. I'm not going to talk too long tonight. All these lectures are usually around 20 minutes. I do want you to watch them. It's like being in class. When you write in your journals, yes, you're going to make a daily journal or weekly journals, fine. And for that day, which is today's Thursday, or whenever you watch this, see, when I post it, you can watch it between now and the next posting. You can watch it at your own convenience. You don't have to be in the room with me. In your journal that you're going to be keeping, it's called a journal reflection. It'll have 17 entries for 17 weeks. Each entry should be 4 or 5 sentences long. What we did, what we spoke about, and what my lectures are about, what you read in the book, what you saw in a film clip I showed you, or a documentary. Essentially, it lets me know that you were paying attention and that you were here in the class. It's my way of your instead of taking roll, or it's a way of letting me know you were here and you paid attention. And the reflection part's it's just like a diary, and you can be critical. It's okay. But I'm going to read these things, and I read them all the way through usually, and they're worth points. And some people don't hand them in if you don't need 10 points. But let's put it this way: 10 points is the difference between an A and a B. So you could do great work and you don't hand in the journal, you're still going to get a B. So you want to make sure you hand in everything you can. So on the journal reflection, I'm going to print next week probably some examples. I'll put those up later on Canvas. I'll announce it, and you'll see what I'm looking for. So don't panic about them yet. The best way to do it is I would make a weekly entry into some sort of document, a Word doc or a PDF file, and put it in a file in your hard drive on your desktop. And at the end of the semester, this thing isn't due till the very last week of the semester. You will just simply upload it onto Canvas so I can see it and read it there. It's usually the last assignment due. But besides telling me you're writing what you've done, what we did or what we covered that week, it's also important to give a sentence or so about reflection. Maybe what you got out of it, maybe what you didn't get out of it, what you loved about it, hated about it. I don't care. It's a reflection on what we did that week. Like I said, it's part of your participation, because you're not in class. I don't take roll, obviously. How do you do that? Anyway, in a pandemic when we're all online. So it gives you a lot of freedom, a lot of leeway, and I will keep bringing this up, and I'll keep reminding you, and I will show you the examples shortly, and so you'll see what I'm looking for. What else? That's important. Make sure you start your journal. I'd start it right now, personally. And if you miss some classes, tell me. Just say I missed that week. That's okay. Now, if you missed 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to lose some points. That means you weren't around for a lot of it. 3 or 4 entries is 3 or 4 weeks. That's a lot. So give me a heads up if you're going to miss some classes, and be honest in your journal and just say missed it. But they could add up if you miss a lot. Okay. So that's one of the other assignments besides the 6 essays. I won't not going to sign an essay yet. I'll probably do that next week. What you'll end up doing is watching a movie, and you're going to analyze that movie. And I hope by then you're all getting this little book, How to Write for Movies, about movies. It's going to help you. Do you absolutely need that book? You want to write a good essay? Yes, you do. I'll do my best to tell you what to write about, but you've got to come up with the stuff on your own. That's part of it. I can't write your paper for you. Anyway, what else do I remember? Oh yeah, I'm going to sign a couple things for you to do over the weekend. You need something to do, I know. So I'm going to sign a documentary. The textbook you're supposed to be buying also is called The Story of Film. It's in there in your syllabus. It's at the bookstore. It's online. You can rent it. There's avenues for it. I kept it cheap, even though it's a really nice book. So I got a lot of great photos. But I found that I could find it for at least $20, if not cheaper. And you can rent it, obviously. Maybe it's cheaper, but I don't know if it's cheaper than $20. Anyway, there's a documentary I mentioned already that follows, made by the same gentleman. It follows the book pretty close, but the documentary is good. I think it's excellent, but the book is better because it's more in depth and it covers a lot more ground than he could possibly cover in a video. And he narrates it. He narrates the story, writes them, directs them, and a lot of people hate his voice. Sorry, he's Irish and speaks very slow, and I like his delivery. I like his take on things. And you'll be watching these things on Canopy. You go to Shasta College website, go to the library, streaming video. You'll see Canopy. Maybe you've done it already. All you need is a library card, and you're going to need that. I think maybe your student ID works also, but if you don't have a library card, you need to get one. Even though we're not in the library, we're in the virtual library, and so we still use the library. You can use it for all sorts of stuff, research, help, checking out stuff. Maybe you've already used the library. I notice on some of your discussions, some of you have been in classes already. Some of you just starting off. We're all different levels. And so you might find the library helpful. You also might find the writing center helpful when you're writing your essays. If you're having some issues with essay writing, if English is not your first language, they will help you smooth your essays out. We'll talk about more about that next week when I assign them. The other thing I want you to watch is on YouTube. I'll announce all this stuff on announcements. So do check announcements several times a week because that's our platform in Canvas. It's a film made in 1903 called Trip to the Moon. It's a French film. And it's about 11 minutes long. And it was one of the first films to ever tell a story. Actually tells a story, and a very weird story about man going to the moon for the first time. And boy, do they have it wrong. But it's awfully amusing, and it's very inventive, made by a French filmmaker, and very primitive, but for the day, it was cutting edge technology. And I'll talk about that more later also. When you watch the film, this will all be announced on Canvas. So if you don't see this, you'll see it there. It'll be your discussion. This week you're introducing yourself. Well, after you've done that, I want you guys to discuss Trip to the Moon. What were your first impressions? What is it about it? What don't you understand? What don't you like? Did you understand it? What did you notice? Just start talking about in the discussion about the film. This is how you're analyzing the film. It's a surreal trip. I mean it, folks. It's almost like a Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland type of trip. Anyway, maybe you've seen photos of it because there's iconic imagery in the film that has existed for over 100 years in our culture. I'm going to talk about our culture a lot and film and how they go together. What's going on in the culture? That usually reflects on what's going on in film. It's been that way throughout history. It's that way throughout mostly all arts. Um, and so I'm going to be talking about that a lot. And I want you to pay attention in your essays about what's going on in the culture. If you're writing about a film, to try to analyze, why do you think it is that way? Uh, does it seem silly to you? Yeah, it will. But why? Because the culture was new then. Nobody really knew what going to the moon was about. They could guess, but it was all guessing. The science wasn't there yet. And so it's a very amusing take on a culture that's well over 100 years old. And, but they're humans, just like us, and they're our ancestors. So you'll watch that. It's on YouTube. It's free. I'll put all that stuff on Canvas announcements and where to find it. I'll probably put the link to that in modules also besides this lecture, so you can watch it there. And take notes. Don't just think you're going to look at one time and think you understand it. Take some notes. What makes it work? Why is it? Why does it exist? What makes it special? So that'll be your assignments this week, to watch the Canopy documentary, Story of Film, and part one. I'll put that in. You'll have to go to Canopy yourself. You'll have to find that. Hopefully you can find it. If you can't, you get it. Contact me, 530-941-9661, or email me at rexhaas@yahoo.com. And please tell me your name and what class you're in. Thanks. Because I told you I have 4 classes. It's a lot of students, and I got to put a name to the class. It helps a lot. Even though these lectures are all similar in the classes, I have different assignments for the classes. So you're all not just doing the same thing. So there's a difference in that. That's why I ask you to identify your class. Thanks. So hopefully you guys are starting to ramp up to the realities that we're back in school. And it's all online. It's all at your own convenience and your own hours, your own time. You could be doing this like I do at 3 a.m. Sunday, Saturday, we have no schedule right now. I will eventually, in the weeks to come, have a Zoom meeting or so, to a meet and greet type of thing. And yes, we'll have to be in the class together or on our computers together. I will try to make it at a time that everybody could, as many as you can attend as possible. I know you work, we'll have commitments and families and jobs and etc. But if we were going to class, you would have to take time out to go to that class, and we don't have that now. So I will try to pick a time that's not too absurd to do a Zoom meeting or 2 throughout this semester. Don't worry about it yet. Hopefully you've done Zoom already. If you haven't, you'll be doing it. Hopefully, if it all works out. Technology, you never know. Film started a long time ago, folks. 1880s, really. They came up. You'll be surprised when you watch the Canopy documentary, how it's all about early days and the fascination we had with motion pictures and how it came to be developed and how it came about. And I know, think about that. When you're watching Trip to the Moon, think about the latest sequel to Iron Man. See how far we've come, but also see how we haven't come that far. Yes, the technology has changed, but we still got the same goals, the same dreams, the same people are the same folks. They're still looking for acceptance. They're still looking for a life, some pursuit of happiness, love, not, unrequited or not or whatever. Um, it's the same old age old story. Shakespeare's been writing about this stuff for 500 years, and he wrote about it 500 years ago, and we're still reading Shakespeare because it's so contemporary. Why is that? Well, fashions change and cultures change and technology changes, but we are all people, humans at the end of the day. And what people wanted 150 years ago, they still want it to this day. It just looks a little different, is all. Maybe it looks a lot different. So that's really all I'm going to say on this brief description. Next week, I'm going to start going into depth on uh, the culture versus film and the decades. I'm essentially going to try, see if it works out, to go decade by decade. And right now, we're in the first decade. And next week, we will be too. And then I'm going to go through each decade till right now. That's going to take me the whole 17 weeks. Because sometimes I get bogged down in one decade, a decade I like, or something, and I think that's a lot more information. It's a lot juicier some other decade, and so I'll kind of hover on that for a while. You're going to get a lot out of this class, I hope. You're going to end up knowing what a lot of these terms are that you've heard, and maybe you've never heard them. The film terms, cinematographer. Do you know what that is? Do you know who does that? What does that mean? What does director of photography mean? I'm going to cover all this. What does a director do? You know names. You might know Quentin Tarantino or Steve Spielberg or whomever, but what exactly is that they do? What does a producer do? You know what actors do, you think, but you don't know. And if you do, good. You'll help me out. Um, it takes a lot to make a movie. Nothing's nothing's easy. They're monumental. Um, but technology has changed so much that now with this device, you could go out and make your own movie. Yes, you can. Um, right now, if on YouTube, I think it's free. You can watch a movie called Tangerine, which I think is quite brilliant. It's intense, folks. It's not for everybody. I would say it's a hard R rating, and that's not for violence. That's for sexual content. That doesn't mean porn, folks. That means emotional sex. It's about essentially two trans women that are hustlers in Hollywood, and they, with amateur actors, filmed on the streets of Hollywood about 3 or 4 years ago on an iPhone 6, and within minutes, you don't even care what it was filmed on. The story's that engaging. We'll be talking about that. If anybody has trouble, you got to let me know. We're all adults, but I see some people in the discussion are still in high school, and I don't want to freak anybody out. We're going to keep our language civilized. We're in college after all. We're not going to, we're going to treat everybody the way we all deserve to be treated in the discussions that's in the syllabus. I hope you guys read about how to behave in school and towards your fellow students. We're not going to be in the classroom together, but you are going to be discussing things together. And so that's where you'll get to know each other a bit, maybe. So keep it civil. We're in college now. Keep your language smart. And so when I suggest a movie like Tangerine, it's pretty adult. If you have trouble with trans women, it might not be your cup of tea. You could tell me that, and I'll assign you something else. I assign this movie every year to watch, Midnight Cowboy. It was rated X when it came out, although compared to what you see on HBO right now, it's pretty tame. And I've had some students saying their parents don't like them watching these kind of movies. That's fine. Just tell me, and we'll have you watch something else. I'm trying to censor it as much as I can. Um, the stuff really doesn't become a problem until the newer films, of course, because now we love to kill people, cut their heads off, and have sex with them at the same time. Almost like everything, there's no holds bar. If you watch HBO or Game of Thrones, you know what I'm talking about. But I always talk about what's going on in the culture and how it reflects on our films. Think about that right now. Just this week, we just had a transition. We have a new president. What was going on in the culture, and look how it affects our films that we're seeing pop up. It does affect it, folks. Anyway, sometimes it's not too obvious until we get some hindsight and we can look at it later. So, you know how to get a hold of me. We're going to watch a lot of movies, hopefully. We're going to talk about movies nonstop. That's what we do here. And we're going to use some fancy French terms. Those are all in the book, by the way. That book I want you guys to get. It tells you about the terms, because if you know the terms, you know what they mean. You'll be able to write about them. And so when you have a term like genre, it's a French term. Simply means category. And so the French invented a lot of cinematic language because the Lumiere brothers, and you'll see that in that part one of that documentary or the chapter one of the book, if you get it, the textbook. They created a lot of early cinema, even though the movie camera was invented in this country. They were more advanced than we were, and they started making films and coming up with this technology before we did, and we've used it ever since. We're still using it anyway. So look up your terms. Next week you should hopefully all have that book. Get it. uh what else? That's it. Go watch movies, do something, talk about it. I'll see you next week. And it's supposed to snow in a couple days, hard to believe. um and I hope your new year is treating you well. We just came through a huge transition with our in Washington D.C., and they're going to be inoculating people, and hopefully this thing will ease up and we'll be able to start socializing again. But still, we got to be careful still and be safe. And with that happy note, be safe, be careful, and I'll see you next week. And remember, everything is cinema. Good night.